Dr. Axel Goehler, the CEO of Bestmalz, joins me this week to discuss malts and craft brewing. This is BeerSmith Podcast number 267. This is BeerSmith Podcast number 267, and it's early October 2022. Dr. Axel Goehler, the CEO of Bestmalz, joins me this week to discuss malts and craft brewing. Thank you to this week's sponsors, Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine. Every issue of Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine is packed with articles for homebrewers and beer lovers. They offer access to videos, brewing courses, exclusive articles, and the amazing Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine. Go to beerandbrewing.com to get your subscription today. And also the Brew Commander, the brewhouse controller from Blickman Engineering. It's available in electric and gas propane models. The patent-pending Brew Commander is a high-quality brewhouse controller that offers automated step mashing, boil timers, precision temperature control, and advanced settings. Command your brew day with the new Brew Commander. To order yours today, visit blickmanengineering.com. Again, that's blickmanengineering.com. And I launched a new version of the BeerSmith forum a few weeks ago, as well as made some significant security upgrades. The BeerSmith discussion forum is a place where you can talk about all things brewing, including techniques, ingredients, equipment, pro brewing, and our BeerSmith recipe software. Join the conversation today at beersmith.com/forum. And now let's jump into this week's episode. Today on the show, I welcome Dr. Axel Goehler, CEO of Bestmalz. Dr. Goehler did his PhD in Switzerland on German family breweries and worked at Boston Consulting Group for 10 years. He's the grandson of the founder of Bestmalz, Max Goehler, and has spearheaded the company's international operations since 2014. Axel, it's great to have you on the show. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. We're just returning from Munich Drink Tech and starting to catch up with the work.
Well, I do appreciate you joining me today from Germany. Can you tell us a little bit about your background in brewing and malting? I know you've been in it for a long time.
Yes, actually, my background is not in business in malting and brewing. My background is more in financial affairs and investment banking and stuff like that. But of course, I grew up in a malt house, more or less. And my grandfather started the business. I think we'll talk about that a little later. Mm-hmm. And then I joined, I was a shareholder pretty much over my whole life in our company. So I was following things, obviously. But in the operations, I got in a little later, which is now almost 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know you said you worked for Boston Consulting Group. I assume you were doing finance and M&A or something like that?
Exactly. Yeah. Just all kind of consulting work partly for the food industry, worked for Coca-Cola. We worked for some breweries, and that on a more or less global basis.
Cool. Well, Bestmalz was founded 120 years ago by your grandfather. Can you tell us a little bit about the family business and what brought you all the way around and back into it?
Yes, this is almost true. My grandfather bought the company after it has been founded, but that was almost 100 years ago. We've come quite long ways since I took over in 2014. I took over from my brother, so my father was in the business after my grandfather, like it is in a good family business. And then my older brother, he managed the company for 20 years, and then I took over in 2014.
Mm-hmm. And what made you decide to get back into malting?
Well, I was at that time I was living in Hamburg, and just the family was under the impression that it's a good time to have the international expertise because I was working a lot internationally. Actually, I was also heading the Jordanian consulate in Hamburg on an honorary basis. So I spent a lot of time of my career in international business. And since we wanted to grow internationally and saw a lot of opportunities in that particular field, I think it was a good time to come back into the business. We have almost 100 people now. Obviously, a great team of experts in
Mm-hmm.
malting and brewing. So that is very common for most malt companies around the world, I guess. But it's quite hard to have this international background in a company our size.
Mm-hmm.
So that we thought was a good match.
Well, in the article you sent me, you mentioned that craft brewing has really changed the way that you're doing business now. And I think you mentioned also you didn't anticipate some of the changes that would happen due to craft brewing. Can you talk a little bit about how craft brewing has really impacted the malting business?
Yeah. I mean, what we are doing, we've been sending in the past, we had maybe two, three, five different varieties that we've sent around, mostly in Germany, also in Switzerland, and sometimes maybe beyond in other countries. But most of the time, we were more or less limited to this number of varieties in these countries. Um, at the time when my grandfather and my father were in the business, 100% of the business was done in bulk. So we had trucks coming up to one of our two malt houses, picking up the malt, and then bringing it to the customer.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, when I started 2014, we had around 240,000 bags, which we sent around 60, 70 countries. So that was quite a number. Today we are close to 1.5 million
Wow.
bags, and that is 25 kilo bags, 50 kilo bags, totes, one ton totes, and still bulk, obviously. But this changes a lot. Obviously, the logistics, sending bags rather than bulk malt, but also all your other processes which are connected to this have to change. So, just to give an example, our quality assurance today is needs to be much more sensitive and much more forward-looking than that was the case during the times when my grandfather was running the business. Because if we have a container that is rejected, let's say in Taiwan or in one of these Australia, one of these markets, the costs are enormous because we have to see what the problem is. And sometimes, if immigration or customs won't let our container enter the country, the costs are just crazy.
Yeah.
And since we have, I mean, hundreds of containers every week, this can end up being extremely costly. So our quality assurance team needs to be much more forward-looking. That requires more people, better training, and other quality of people with more experience. And same is true for the service. Our service team is very well trained and rounded internationally, so they know what are the requirements for documents in Taiwan, in China, in the US. And customers expect that because they often don't have the know-how, especially when we're talking about smaller companies, which the craft industry tends to be smaller. Also, finally, the relationship with our distributors has become extremely important. And I always call our distributors our lifeline in our business because we have a handful of distributors, or not a handful, but we have around, let's say, 30 to 40 distributors around the world with exclusive arrangements in their markets. And if they are doing well, then we're also doing well.
Mm.
So that's very important.
So, I mean, you spearheaded the expansion. Obviously, you were domestically focused originally, and now you're, I think, in some 85 countries. What were some of the challenges you had entering all those different markets?
There are surprises, let's call it this way, when you enter different markets. I mean that the FDA in the US is very strict, and they only know black and white. Either you fulfill the requirements or you don't. And they pretty much go by the book in judging one or the other. I mean, that is expected when you go to the US market, but there are smaller markets where you would never expect that they have the know-how or the diligence to do these type of analysis. So really check the malt varieties for any residues which are not acceptable in the given country. And that is certainly a challenge to know exactly what the market requires, first of all, and then also what capabilities they have to follow on. And today, I think all of the international customs authorities, they have an enormous know-how when it comes to importing or letting malt from other countries come in. Also, of course, with customers, there is very often the need to explain things. Just at the moment, as we talk, we have this incredible energy price increase globally. And while customers in Germany, they're all familiar with our situation, they know why the prices are where they are. Someone who's in Peru or in Chile, they don't understand why is the malt suddenly twice the price where it was 2-3 years ago. And that requires very good communication, understanding of the local needs of our partners, and at the same time being able to convey our situation and why we do the things that we do.
That's actually one of the things I wanted to ask you about. I mean, obviously, you are facing a significant energy challenge in Germany, and your particular industry is pretty energy intensive, I would think, running kilns and drying the malts and so on. It takes a lot of energy. How has that impacted you?
Yeah, that is dramatic in a sense. Because of course, as you rightfully say, there are in Germany we have 2,000 companies which have the label energy intensive. They are very tightly controlled. There is a certain standard, ISO standard, that we need to fulfill because of this energy intensity. Because even 10 years ago, the government had an interest that we are working very efficiently with the energy that we need. So we were in this process. We've been in this process for a long time to improve our efficiency, being audited whether these improvements are actually carried out. But of course, these days the price increases are enormous.
Yeah.
Just to be specific, we had 2 years ago. Our total costs except for the barley, so our operational costs were around 20% of that was about energy. Today, 80% of our total cost, aside from the barley, which is the raw material cost, but aside from that, it's 80% energy today.
My goodness, that's a lot.
So you see the importance. And again, you need to change your processes, because energy, the purchase of energy, was more or less, something that you did when you had nothing else to do. We always focused in our industry on the purchase of the barley, because that is where we saw the big fluctuations. And if barley is 80% of your total value of the malt, then of course you need to focus on that. And most malt houses were extremely knowledgeable and experienced in the purchase of barley, but now suddenly the purchase of energy becomes extremely important, and that is something that we have to adjust to.
Now, you did mention barley. Are you do you purchase most of your barley locally? Is it most of it locally grown in Germany?
All of it is locally grown. We don't buy any barley outside of Germany. This is for a simple reason, because even in the EU, you have differences in the possibilities and the requirements. We feel that the German agricultural sector is very tightly controlled. We have all reasons. We're working closely with the farmers that grow our barley. For the most part, we know where it's coming from. We audit the warehouses where they store the barley before it comes to us, and all of this is a very important, vital element in our total control, quality control process. And so we cannot control barley coming from France or from Belgium or Denmark as tightly as we can in Germany, and this is important to us, but also in the end to our customers.
I would assume that gives you a better quality product overall, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now, the other challenge, I think, in moving in all these international markets is you've had to produce, I would assume, more varieties, partially to serve the craft brewing market, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Today we have around 75 standard products.
Mm-hmm.
And aside from these standard products, we have a number of customer-specific products, partly coming from breweries, but also from the baking industry or from distillers. There are requests for slightly higher color or slightly different protein, or you name it. And so overall, we have a wide variety of different products today.
And I assume you didn't have those malts probably 20 years ago, right?
No, no, not at all. Which is also fun because, brewers are open, trying out new things. We introduce new products every year. We like to experiment. So again, there's a structural change in our business. We work with the big infrastructure, with the big germination streets, as we call them. But also we have small or smaller plants now where we can test in 1 ton, 2 ton, 3 ton, 5 ton standards. So it's exciting because you can try out new recipes and see what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, of course, my podcast focused on home brewing, and a lot of the people listening are home brewers, although there's a lot of pro brewers as well. But it's great because Bestmalz is available now to the home brewing market, and we can access, I think, almost all of your products now, which is wonderful. In fact, we just updated the add-ons with your staff recently. So the new add-ons are available in BeerSmith, which is a software I make as well. So that's kind of neat.
Sure.
But I wanted to discuss some of the new things you're doing in malting. I think can you tell us first about you've got this new technology called Airstream, I believe, for roasted malts.
Yes, exactly. It's not so new, but I think, as far as I know, we are the only malt house in the world that is working with this technology. The start of our search for a different technology was that many brewers complain about the astringent bitterness of the roasted malt. Mm-hmm. And so we were looking for ways to make this less astringent without dehusking. Obviously, dehusking is one of the options, but since the husk in itself it has a function in the brewing process, as all of your listeners know, we didn't want to do that. So we did what we call fluid bed roasting. It is different to the steel drum. We blow up the kernels in the air. They are circled around a hot device, and therefore they don't touch the hot steel as much, and therefore the burnt outside of the kernels is much less without dehusking. And last year we did during the pandemic, we took the time to do a exercise and scientifically find out what is the impact on our different technology. And there are different classes of so-called pyrrhins, which is the chemical entity which causes the astringency. Yeah. And there are different classes, and we found out that in some of these classes we actually have 85% less pyrrhins. In some it is less, but in some it's 85, and that is what subjectively causes the reduced level of bitterness. So we like the product. We're just starting a big introductory campaign in the US, started last year, still going on. And the success is impressive.
So are you doing that during the roasting process? You're actually floating the grains in this airstream, I guess?
Exactly. It's a two-step process. So we have a fully malted product, which is a difference to some of the other colleagues. They sometimes work with unmalted grains, which we also do, but then upon special requests. So if you want roasted barley or other
stout roast,
grains,
roasted barley,
we do that. But for the most part, for our 3 roast malt, chocolate malt, the best roasted and the best extra roasted, we work with a fully malted product. and then it's roasted in this fluid bed roaster.
So can you mention again which products have this feature?
It is one product called Special X, which is a lighter roast malt, and then our chocolate malt, which is the lightest of the palest of our three roasted malts, and then the best extra dark, which is the darkest. It has 1400 EBC malt, and then in the middle there's the best roasted malt.
And those are more of a standard malt, right? So are you doing this with your standard malts then?
Yeah, these are standard products that we offer to all customers.
Nice. So they're available to everyone, I guess, and quite a bit less bitter than if you bought a standard chocolate malt or maybe a black patent malt then.
Yeah, I mean, of course, taste is very subjective, but especially at the CBC earlier this year, we always have brewers liking to actually eat the malt.
Yeah.
And I think most of them agree that there's a difference that you can taste in the malt, strong difference.
And I don't think anybody else is doing this, are they? I think there's I know there's a lot of dehusked. You can get dehusked Carafa and so on, but I'm not aware of any other malt houses doing this. Huh?
No, I don't know. I think the process is used in coffee roasting, and most people have probably seen the production of popcorn. When the corn pumps up in the air.
I'm thinking like an air popper is what I'm thinking of here.
Exactly.
Very cool.
So anyone who wants to see it in the malt can come to our malt house, and open invitation.
And where are you located? Just
we are in Southwest Germany. We have two malt houses. One is about half an hour driving hour from Frankfurt, and the other one is a little bit further south in regions where there is a lot of brewing barley to be found. So we're surrounded by nature.
Awesome.
Nice.
I believe you've been working with a new malt variety as well it's called Best A-XL malt. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, very interesting because of the summer, which obviously was very hot this year. We were not sure how this would come out, but we were searching for something special, which you don't get at any other malt house in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up with a variety which was registered in Germany in 1986 already. And this is called Alexis. It's a seed which has had a lot of good feedback and was one of the main barley varieties from 1986 till 1995, more or less. But then it was no longer grown in Germany, and we asked and got the feedback that we can have this seed exclusively as the only malt house in the world if we wanted to grow it. So we organized this year in Crop 22, we organized an initiative. We found farmers who were willing to grow it. And of course, it's not easy to beat 20 years of grain research. Obviously, the new modern grain varieties are better performing, higher yield, more resistance to bacteria and fungus and stuff like that.
Exactly.
So because of that challenge, we knew that the price for the grain will be higher. Mm-hmm. Therefore, our request was, or internally, when we said, what are the hurdles that we need to meet in order to propose this to customers in the end, was that we need to find a distinct advantage to the brewer. We didn't want to offer something which is simply exciting, but not offering a real advantage. And so we did a lot of research with some of the famous German universities, Weihenstephan and others in Berlin. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting. After looking at many, many aspects, we found out that the foam stability is extremely better and impressively better than the foam stability of our modern varieties. So
Interesting.
we did some test beers, and according to both subjective tests, focus groups who tested the beer, but also there's a scientific explanation why this is the case. And we found out that the foam stability is just a lot better, and that is the XL in the name. So it's Alexis, that's the A, and the XL is it's giving extra large foam. Or a lot of foam, and we proposed this at the trade show at the Drink Tech for the first time. We have limited availability in this crop, but next crop we want to grow more of that, and yeah, hopefully customers will like it.
So does the extra foam stability come from the more proteins in the malt, or what is
exactly.
it? So it's a higher protein malt?
Exactly. But at the same time, it's a base malt, so you can work with it 100% in your grain bill. Like I said, it has a proven track record, and actually, the taste of the beers that we did with this was just very malty, very rich, just beautiful. So even as a non.
Is it a pale malt then, or would it be called a pale malt then?
No, yeah, it's comparable with the Pilsen malt. It has the same features and the same EBC values of a Pilsen malt. Yeah.
And do you have any idea why they stopped growing it in the 90s? I just wondered.
This is part of the German brewing industry that we have a panel of brewers, maltsters, seed developers, and university professors, and they always agree year by year on a new variety that is introduced and an old variety that's taken out. It has a lot to do with yield, of course, with stability of the plant. And as I said, this is improved year over year. So they want to make sure that we are growing the best seeds available in the market. And just by nature, at a certain stage, they are phased out and new varieties come in.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been amazed to hear that there's really, here, even in the U.S., a big country, obviously, there's only a handful of malts that are actually grown, or a handful of barleys that are actually grown. There's not that many varieties, actually.
Yes, and, in Germany, being a, small market, at least when it comes to the region or to the surface area, we want to make sure that there is the research is focused on the varieties which are most interesting to the maltsters, the brewers, and other participants in the market. And so that's the reason.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, we are seeing some small maltsters. We've got small malt houses popping up around the United States, and they are starting to try and get some heirloom barleys into production again, but it's very, very difficult. I mean, how hard is it to really get a new barley variety grown and into production? It takes some time, doesn't it?
Yeah, it takes time, and it takes a lot of convincing because it has to be attractive for the farmers. So they have more risk when it's an old seed. It's more risky for them because of the lack of research and resistance against all kinds of insects and all kinds of other hazards to agricultural products. So you need to convince the farmers. In our case, we needed to make sure that this is a closed circuit. So we wanted to have the product exclusive worldwide. So you cannot have any farmer included. You need to be sure that that it remains a closed circuit. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, you need to do the malting. It's never going to be one of the large seeds that we have in our storage. So you need to separate it very, very carefully from your other varieties that you buy from third parties. So yeah, it's a challenge, but in our size, it's maybe something that a large malt house wouldn't want to do and couldn't do possibly. But for us, with our size, it's just something which is exciting, a new thing, and something that we offer our customers. If they need extra foam, which some, especially in countries like Korea or even in the US, water quality may be different, so foam may be an issue, and so this is a good natural product,
No, I
fully
think it's
natural.
great. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I did want to ask, do you have any other products that you want to mention that are recent or new?
Well, we
Might be
have
of interest?
Yeah, you mentioned roasted barley, which is something that we just introduced. We have, of course, our Red X, which is not new, but it's still something
That's
which,
been very
uh,
popular here, actually.
yeah, I think Stone had the Stone Pataskala Red X IPA a couple of years ago, which was nationwide in distribution, and I think that made it famous. So yeah, Red X is still in high demand. We have another range of which exists for the wheat beer, for the wheat malt, but also uh, for the barley malts, which is called our Best Heidelberg range.
Hmm.
So the Best Heidelberg range is a lighter malt, which is a little bit lighter than the standard Pilsen malt or the standard wheat malt, and it's especially in Eastern Europe, but also in other countries. I think also in the U.S. Brewers like to have especially the summer beers, fresh, pale, and that is also something that is in very good demand in the U.S. and in Asia, some parts of Asia.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, there are some significant changes ongoing in the beer market, especially in the wake of COVID. What are some of the changes that you're seeing at your end?
Yeah, I think the first 2 years of COVID was a challenge for the brewing industry in Germany. So we have around 1,300 breweries, maybe 70 malt houses still
Mm.
in Germany. Most of the breweries and the maltsters are family owned. And of course, if you lose all your tap sales
Revenue, yeah.
from one moment to the other, like in the US, I think there was a lot of suffering. And of course, now with we have not only the energy, it's also other products, chemical products like the CO2 for carbonation, which is simply not available anymore for medium-sized companies.
I was just
So
reading today that there was some kind of a volcanic thing that happened here and wiped out a lot of the CO2 production here in the
yeah,
U.S. It was very strange, but yeah. And they said the
well, yeah,
prices are supposed to go through the roof here shortly.
yeah, and parts of our chemical industry. So when we talk about CO2, it's mostly BASF, which is not far from here, and
Yeah.
Linde, which is another manufacturer, and they simply don't sell anymore to medium-sized customers. So if you don't have in your process, if you're not able to recapture the CO2 in your own production, which most of the large breweries can,
Uh-huh.
then you are in trouble. I think this is a challenge. So the family-owned companies also access to capital and finance
Hmm.
is becoming increasingly a challenge.
Interest rates going up, of course. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think for family structure industry, which still the brewing and the malting is, as I said, current times are not easy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
got to be careful.
Obviously. How's Bestmalz adopting to these changes? What kind of things are you doing to adjust?
Yeah, we always during the pandemic, for us it was important to get through the pandemic, but it was even more important what our structures and our partnerships are when we get out of the pandemic. So, with our distributors, our lifeline, as I said before, for us, it was extremely important to live and let live. And whenever there was an issue in their home market that they couldn't fulfill a contract or that they asked for maybe a little more credit at a certain time, during the pandemic, I think we were trying to do our very best in order to support. And and then other than that, I think still more than ever, quality is extremely important. And we heard that just at the trade show a few days ago,
Hmm.
because something you really don't like when things get difficult and times get rough. You don't want issues with customers. You don't want issues with returned malt. No bags that are not coming in the correct, with the correct documents. I mean, this is what international partners really don't like, in addition to all the problems that they already have. So for us, I think it is more important than ever to have a very neatly organized value chain from getting the barley into our silos all the way up to sending the containers on their way. So, and then trust with partners and customers, being there if there are issues, responding fast to emails and requests and complaints. Pretty much the basics of the business, but it just seems to be more important than ever when times get rough.
Yeah. Well, I did want to come back around to the family nature of your business. And, one of the unique things you mentioned just a minute ago in Germany is a lot of the breweries and malt houses are family owned. What are some of the strengths you get from keeping Best Malts a family run business?
The strengths, I think decision making is faster. So we are still 3 family members. We reduced it a little bit in the last 10 years. So in order to stay efficient, and I think this is one of the big advantages, that we're just faster. We did a big investment in 2018 and 19. This was a new warehouse, including a new bagging line, including a fully automated warehouse infrastructure. And obviously this was a major investment, but it was decided more or less within weeks, because we just felt from the nature of the business and the increase in our number of bags, as I said before, increase in the complexity of logistics. We felt that this is really needed. And to be honest, in 2020, it was open. The opening was in November 2019. So then we thought, wow, now the business can start. Things will go perfect.
And then things slowed down a bit.
Yeah, the pandemic hit. But so initially we thought, with all these extra costs, this is going to be a challenge. And it was. But it turned out that, increased warehouse space, more flexibility in your processes, when ships get delayed, when trucks don't arrive, when there's no drivers for the trucks because they have COVID, and all these delays, they cause or they require more flexibility on our part. So with this new infrastructure, we felt that it was exactly the right timing. And so coming back to your question, so being a family business, we can decide more or less on the spot if things if things make sense. Access to capital is a challenge, obviously, because we don't have the capabilities that large conglomerates have. But our capital cost of capital are still very reasonable, because we work with our banks I think one of our banks we worked for the last 50 years. So they know us very well. They know what to expect, and we keep them very close to our business, so they know where we are. And this also increases the speed of decision making on their part.
Where can people find your product? I believe you have a U.S. distributor, and I apologize, I don't recall who it is. Can you mention their name and also your website?
Yeah, it's the Country Malt Group. They have warehouses all over the United States and also in Canada. You can find them at countrymalt.com. And they have all our products. We talk to them every month on Teams conference, make sure that we align our logistics and that things go well. So of course, we met at the trade show a few days ago and had discussions. And this is the most common way how we get to the customers with our distributors. And they also have marketing materials. So if you need any promotional items or marketing support, we can send this through our distributors.
And you have an English website as well, I believe, right?
Yeah. Our website is at bestmalz.de. and you have all kinds of information on our products, all our technical data on our products, access points, for our service, our sales team, our technical team, and also background information on the company.
And for folks that are using BeerSmith, I did work with your team recently and updated. I think all the best malts have been updated in BeerSmith. You can grab them under as an add-on simply within the BeerSmith software that I have. I wanted to get your closing thoughts on Best Malts, malting, and of course your 100 plus years as a family-run business.
Yeah. Well, I think, as said before, these are exciting and also challenging times. But, in the end, at the moment, we're spending a lot of time with German bureaucracy, with new auditing procedures, with new other bureaucratic requirements. So that seems to increase rather than diminish in the current situation. But in the end, things, I think, fairly easy and very, very simple. As long as we offer a top product item or top quality products to our customers, I think we really don't have to worry because people appreciate the quality, I think. They may try out competitors' products, which is fine, but very often they find out that there is a difference in different malts, and also many customers underestimate the technical level of malt. Probably brewers will appreciate that, but people outside the industry, they think, well, this is grain that is grown in the field and then simply put in bags and sent out. But I think, my takeaway from my 10 years heading our company is that it's a very technical product. There are many things that can go wrong, and customers, especially in the US, are extremely happy, and they come forward and they say, thank you. I did with your beer, with your malt, I did the best Pilsen in my whole life. And I think this is all the credit that we want. That's a very nice feedback.
Well, I started brewing in 1987, and I can tell you for a fact that the quality of malts have just improved so much over the last 30 years or 40 years. So it is a very technical thing. A lot of people don't appreciate it. I've had a number of maltsters on talking about it, but I think you're doing a great job. Best Malts is available in most homebrew shops now, I think, and so that's a great thing as well.
Yeah. And if you have any questions, if any of your customers have any questions, they can certainly come forward and ask our team, and we will try to be helpful.
Well, Axel, I really appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure. You have a great day.
Today, my guest was Dr. Axel Goehler, CEO of Best Malz, a family-owned malting company based in Germany. Thank you again, Axel. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
A big thank you to Dr. Axel Goehler for joining me this week. Thanks also to Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine. They offer access to videos, brewing courses, exclusive articles, and Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine. Go to beerandbrewing.com to get your subscription today. And also the Brew Commander, the new brewhouse controller from Blickman Engineering. It's available in electric and gas propane models. The patent-pending Brew Commander is a high-quality brewhouse controller that offers automated step mashing, boil timers, precision temperature control, and advanced settings. Command your brew day with the new Brew Commander. To order yours today, visit blickmanengineering.com. Again, that's blickmanengineering.com. And I launched a new version of the BeerSmith discussion forum a few weeks ago, as well as made some significant security upgrades. The BeerSmith forum is a place where you can discuss all things brewing, including techniques, ingredients, pro brewing, and our BeerSmith recipe software. Join the conversation today at beersmith.com/forum. I'd like to thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great brewing week.